Okay, we're going to start with the follower. We're going to place that in here. We're going to put a little oil in there. We're going to put the spring in and the cap. Next we'll go put the bolt, firing pin spring. Put a couple of drops of oil in there. Slide it up in there. Next we need the bolt extension. And the keeper. The pin holds it all together. And again, we're going to use that block of wood to support it. Tap it in. Until it's balanced out evenly on both sides. Make sure it moves freely and that this floats nice and smooth. After we get the bolt in, we're going to put the trigger assembly back in. I like to put a little bit of grease on the spring to keep it from rusting, and a drop of oil next to the hammer, and a little in the sear. Run the hammer up in here. Try to get this hole to line up. Temporarily place your bolt in there. Doesn't have to be tight since you're going to be removing it. I'm only doing that to get this to line up. I feel these surfaces to see if they match up. If not, I move it so that those surfaces are fairly flush before I put the screws in. I don't tighten either screw yet. I put them both into the gun, just snug. Once they're both in, then I tighten them down, pressing hard downward on the screwdriver to prevent it from slipping and damaging the screw. Then I can remove this screw. Grease the sides of the carrier a little to attract dirt in that area. Slide the carrier up in. Put a fair amount of grease on the end of your lifter arm. Small amount of grease on the outside wear edges where it comes in contact with the lever. Small amount of grease on the sides of the lever. Slight amount of grease on the screw itself. Place your left lever spring in. Placing a fair amount of grease on the end of the lever spring. I tighten it down with the lever almost closed, pushing it downward, and tighten it until it just jumps a little and it snaps the lever shut. This screw can be tightened later on after the gun's assembled because it's going to want to turn the spring into the gun. So you can leave this one a little loose at this point, and you can tighten it later, causing this spring to go inward, because these springs have to stay inward to the gun. If they fall off, they're going to wear the gun out prematurely. Tighten this screw to the point where it pulls the carrier down, right there. Okay, it wants to come back down fairly good. I like to get this one a little bit snugger, a little tighter than I need, because I can loosen this one, causing this spring to want to go inward. If I tighten this screw, it's going to want to come off and possibly walk off the cam and wear the gun out prematurely. Mainly this has to hold this down, and it has to hold it up. So if it falls prematurely, it's going to cause a jam. Or if it doesn't stay up, stay down, it could not load properly. Next, we can place our levers in. Fair amount of grease in the groove, a little on the outside. The pin. The other lever. I like to place a little grease on the cover because it attracts dirt to it rather than letting it float in areas that I don't want it. Same thing on this side. Place a little grease in areas that I want the dirt to be attracted to. You're going to get dirt in your gun. I just like to try to steer it in a certain direction. Snap your cover in. Make sure it's on all the way. Before you tighten your screw quite a bit, recheck your covers. And I forgot to mention, when you're putting your covers on, you want to make sure those springs are inward. You always want to make sure that your springs stay inward. That's why I didn't rack the gun or anything, because it'll possibly let them walk off. We can place our little part in here. Push the ball down to let the dust cover slide forward. Line the screw hole up. Place the small screw back in there. Place our buttstock back on the gun. Make sure you get the long screw on top. Again, that screw does not have to be real tight. Neither does this one. Check the action. Next gun.